Hi there. You're listening to English Podcast for Beginners, your friendly guide to learning English step by step. Let's learn, practice, and grow together.
Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is, it's focused on one of the toughest hurdles a learner faces, really, no matter the language. We're talking about that internal journey, going from shy, sort of quiet hesitation, all the way to confident, articulate communication. And we're not looking at a textbook today, no grammar drills. We're diving deep into a specific learner's personal story, using their experience as our main source.
Yeah, and that's so important, the framing here.
Yeah.
Because we're looking beyond just language growth, picking up new words or sentence structures. We're digging into the emotional side, the psychology needed to unlock that communication. This source narrative really shows us how someone overcomes that deep insecurity, the self-doubt, and honestly, that constant fear of being judged. And this story, it speaks to so many learners out there who, they know the language intellectually, right? They get it, but they feel totally intimidated, just frozen when it's actually time to speak.
Exactly. So our goal today is to empower you by showing how that confidence, that voice, that courage, how it's deliberately built. We're starting right from that feeling, that really common feeling. You know the words, you understand the rules, but you just freeze up when you need to speak freely.
And what really jumps out from the learner's account is just the sheer mental effort involved in that hesitation. They list all those struggles we recognize, the things that hold people back. That awful fear of embarrassment,
Oh, yeah.
that perfectionism that just paralyzes you, demanding you get everything right, the habit of overthinking, editing every single word in your head before you dare say it.
Constantly translating back and forth.
Exactly, that constant mental translation. And then, the really damaging one, comparing yourself to others who just seem effortless.
Yeah, that comparison is just brutal, isn't it? That constant self-critique. Okay, so that's our starting point for this deep dive.
Right. To understand how you get out of it, we have to map out that early terrain. The source calls it the early stage. And it's marked by this long period of silent understanding. Basically, your listening skills get really good.
You can understand almost everything.
Exactly. But the person desperately wants to speak, but their internal editor just slams on the brakes, freezes them. They replay mistakes in their head over and over, sometimes for months, even years after they happen.
Yeah, the source talks about that feeling where your listening comprehension is miles ahead of your speaking. It's almost painful. You can follow fast conversations, read complicated stuff, but when someone asks you something, just static. Nothing comes out.
And the learner's journal entries from back then, they describe communication feeling incredibly fragile. If they messed up one tiny preposition or got an auxiliary verb wrong, the whole conversation would just shatter, and they'd feel this immense personal shame. It created this cycle. Fear stopped practice.
And lack of practice just made the fear worse. But what's really interesting here, and you've touched on this, the source makes a crucial point. This silence, this period, it's not failure.
Precisely. That's key. The source defines it as essential preparation. You have to have the input before you can generate output. Understanding comes first. The ability to express yourself confidently, it only gets stronger over time, and crucially, through using the language. The learner realized, kind of late, that they spent way too much time just filling the tank with knowledge.
And not enough time actually driving the car. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's silent understanding is the preparation. The next bit is what the source calls the internal battle. If the person already knew the grammar, like you said, what was the actual turning point? What broke the silence? It wasn't just more verb drills, right?
Absolutely not. And this is the pivot point in the whole story.
Yeah.
The source is super clear. The turning point was a fundamental mindset shift. Realizing the barrier wasn't the language itself, but the fear about using it. They figured out their fluency wasn't trapped by their vocabulary list. It was trapped by their ego's terror of looking stupid.
Okay, that shift from knowing it intellectually to actually confronting it emotionally. How did they make that stick? It's one thing to say, don't be afraid, but when you're actually talking to someone, how do you stop yourself from retreating? We need the strategies here.
Right. Well, the learner realized they had to deliberately, introduce discomfort into their routine.
Right.
They understood that the comfort zone, that silent understanding place, was actually stopping progress. The key was deciding to speak before the fear could fully grab hold. Just jump in.
Okay, so the source talks about this critical perspective shift. Start fearing mistakes, stop treating them like failures, and start embracing them, seeing them as progress markers, as feedback, like a total reframe of errors.
Exactly.
I have to push back a bit here, though. That sounds good, but making mistakes can be awkward, right? It can lead to misunderstandings. How did the learner handle that immediate negative feedback loop? The social awkwardness?
That's a fair point. The source acknowledges that, yeah, there's a social cost sometimes, but the learner actively looked for places where that cost was lower. They found patient practice partners, or maybe used anonymous online chats first, but more importantly, they developed this internal mantra, something like, this awkward feeling, it's temporary, the confidence I get from pushing through, that's permanent.
They started seeing the error not as reflecting on them as a person, but just as data. Like, okay, need to work on prepositions, not I'm stupid.
Right, not a character flaw, just a technical glitch to fix that's much more sustainable. Okay, so let's get practical. The adoptable strategies. The source gives 5 clear learning strategies that really change things for them. Okay, first one, and maybe the hardest, they made a rule. Start speaking even when feeling really unsure. Prioritize getting words out over comfort, or even over perceived quality initially. The source notes those first attempts felt, well, awful, almost nonsensical sometimes. But it broke the freezing habit.
I can just imagine the mental exhaustion. And how did they stop themselves from, like, editing every sentence halfway through? Because I find when I try that, the quality tanks, and then I just get more frustrated.
Yeah, and that links straight to the third strategy, changing the main goal. Switching from I absolutely must speak perfectly to I must speak consistently. The learner realized all that mental energy spent trying to get 99% accuracy was just grinding their conversational speed to 0. So aiming for, say, 70% accuracy, but 100% flow. It massively reduced the mental load. It trained their brain to just keep going, even if they wobbled grammatically.
Okay, consistency over perfection. What else?
The fourth one was getting really serious about shadowing.
Yeah.
And this isn't just passive listening, it's actively mimicking a native speaker right after they talk, trying to match the intonation, the speed, the rhythm.
Like repeating exactly what they say.
Yeah, almost immediately. The source said it felt completely ridiculous at first, like trying to sing along perfectly to a song you barely know. But that awkwardness was the whole point. It forced their mouth and brain to sync up on the actual physical act of making the sounds.
Shadowing's brilliant. It tackles the music of the language, not just the words. That's so key for sounding natural and maybe reducing accent interference a bit.
Absolutely. And the fifth strategy, and this one gets missed a lot, they made a real effort to actively celebrate the small wins. Not just, wow, I had a perfect conversation, but celebrating just finishing a sentence without backing down, or starting a conversation even when their voice was literally trembling. That positive reinforcement, it slowly chips away at the self-doubt. It builds momentum.
Courage and consistency, those seem to be the engines here. Okay, let's talk payoff. Because the sources really stress that confidence is earned, not gifted. You don't just wake up confident. It's built piece by piece, syllable by syllable, through actually using the language in the real world.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source lists specific practical things they did that grew that confidence. And this wasn't just theory. It meant deliberately choosing discomfort. First, just engaging in conversations with native speakers, especially ones who didn't know about their internal struggle that forced real-time processing.
Wow, that sounds terrifying. Was there like a specific moment mentioned where that real-world stuff finally clicked?
There was, actually. The Learner's Journal talked about joining an online group for a really niche hobby, something totally unrelated to learning English. And because they were so passionate about the topic, the urge to share their opinion or argue a point, it actually overrode the anxiety about grammar. The motivation shifted from, I need to speak English well, to, I need to tell this person why their theory about, 18th century teapots is wrong. Passion basically distracted them from the fear.
That's a great hack. Use your interests. What else?
Second, joining structured language exchanges, things purely focused on talking back and forth. Third, making that really hard choice to ask questions instead of just nodding and pretending to understand.
Oof, yeah. That's tough. Exposing what you don't know.
The source said it was hard because, it reveals a gap. But doing it was vital for actually participating, not just observing. Fourth, building a daily habit of reading aloud, not for understanding the text, but purely to build the articulation muscles.
Just getting your mouth used to making the sounds.
Exactly. The learner noted that at first it sounded like a, quote, frustrated robot. But sticking with it was key for getting the inflection right. And crucially, number 5, recording voice notes. Actually recording themselves speaking to objectively track their progress. Hearing your own improvement, even tiny shifts in tone or speed, that's undeniable proof you're getting better.
Okay, this next part is where it gets really deep, I think. The section about identity. The source directly links language ability to your sense of self. They describe this huge shift. The moment when speaking English stopped feeling like a performance, like this stressful act, and started feeling like just expressing a real part of who they are. Was there any, sadness about leaving the old silent self behind, or was it all positive?
The narrative suggests it was mostly relief, actually. Maintaining that old silent self was exhausting. This shift meant the learner was basically building a bigger, more expansive version of their identity. They realized their inner thoughts, their sense of humor, things they thought only existed in their native language. They could actually come across in English too, even if the delivery wasn't perfect yet.
That realization feels like the final key turning in the lock, doesn't it? It leads to self-acceptance, pride in being bilingual or multilingual, and the source has this final, really essential piece of advice. Stop apologizing for your accent.
Exactly. Your accent tells a story. It represents effort, history, resilience. It's a badge of honor, definitely not something to be ashamed of. The learner realized that trying to completely erase their accent was like trying to erase their journey. And once they embraced their voice, accent, and all, their confidence just soared because they weren't chasing some impossible, idealized version anymore.
Right. Which brings us nicely to the summary of this whole journey. The story shows shyness turning into confidence through, well, patience, persistence, and just doing the work, practical application. It's such a powerful reminder that everyone, literally everyone who speaks fluently now, felt unsure at some point. Fluency isn't magic. It's built block by block through repetition and finding that courage over time.
So the takeaway for you listening, if you feel shy right now, you're not behind schedule, you're not failing. You're just on the part of the path that demands emotional effort before it gives you that linguistic ease. So acknowledge your progress seriously, no matter how small it seems. Recognize that the quiet learner you might be today can absolutely be the confident speaker of tomorrow.
Your voice matters. And the source leaves us with that incredibly powerful final reminder. Speak, even if it trembles. So if that's true, and if confidence really does come after courage, never before it, what specific moment, maybe a small risk, maybe potential embarrassment, what are you prepared to risk today to start building that future confidence? That's your essential next step. Thank you for diving deep with us.